Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Pathway, episode 4. And we have quite an action-packed one for you today. Firstly, we have our interview with Kian Proctor today, fresh off hearing the fact that he just won the U21 Player of the Month for June. We've got someone who embodies exactly what the pathway is and what we've been trying to talk about here in the first few episodes. So we're excited to bring you that and introduce you to someone who you can watch, hopefully go right to the top. We're pretty excited. And then we bring about our roundtable where some of our regulars will be talking about not just the Canadian progress in the World Cup. Unfortunately, we are now out as the World Cup progresses, but so much legacy will be built off the back of this. And also we get into a few things that are happening right now across the leagues, across our country. So if you haven't already, please like, subscribe. If you think that there's a story in here that you want to share with someone, share that too. And let's get into the show. Before we do launch into the show, I just want to acknowledge one of our PSLC partners, which is Major Sports Analysis, also known as MSA. MSA are delivering data behind the game. Every men's and women's OPL match is powered by MSA Insights with performance features and data-driven spotlight shared across the OPL. So our next guest is another fantastic example of the player pathway we're seeing develop across Premier Soccer Leagues Canada. After coming through TSS Rovers in the BC Premier League and then impressing at Simon Fraser University and finally signing his first professional contract with Vancouver FC this season, Kian Proctor's already making a name for himself in the Canadian Premier League. He's also just been named the CPL Under-21 Player of the Month for June, following an outstanding run of performances. Kian, firstly, congratulations on the award. And secondly, thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited to meet you today.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really happy with that award. It's nice to meet you. And I'm excited for this chat for sure. Thank you.
Amazing. So I'm going to start there and then we can get a bit more into your career. What does that award mean to you, considering, firstly, it's very recent that you would have found out, but also you just made Team of the Week 3 times in the last 4 weeks. So clearly you're seeing consistency being recognized in your performances.
Yeah, no, it means a lot to me. For sure, this is my first season in the league, being one of the young players. As soon as the league was created and when Vancouver was created in 2023, I always wanted to be among those top, youth players, U21 players, and I think I've had a good month, and I'm pretty happy with that award. It means a lot to me getting 3 out of 4 Team of the Weeks this month. So it's definitely a good way to keep the form running and keep my confidence high. I mean, I think it's deserved, but I think there's still more to come for the rest of the season for sure.
Amazing. And you're only a few months into your pro career. How would you describe the transition from university football to playing every week in the CPL?
It's definitely different, especially the last couple of weeks. We've had quite a few games. Comparing it to university and League One, it's a bit different. There's a lot more intensity in terms of training and load management and stuff like that. And then come to the games, obviously the level's higher, so there's a lot more to expect. But I mean, we're playing every couple of days right now, midweek, with the Canadian Championship and in the season. So it's definitely a bit of a transition physically and mentally, but I'm learning a lot. So I'm really, really enjoying it.
And any major adjustments off the pitch as well?
Yeah, I mean, taking care of myself is one, especially when I'm putting into my body and recovery. I'm finding myself, like when I was at university, I wasn't really doing any sort of post-training, post-match recovery, like stretching or anything like that. And then I get home from training these days, and all I want to do is stretch because I'm just so exhausted compared to university. So yeah, I mean, I'm obviously I'm new to being a pro. I've only been a pro for maybe 5 or 6 months, but I'm trying to learn as much as I can, and I think it's going pretty well in terms of how I'm developing. So it's going well.
Now, before turning pro, you did spend time with TSS Rovers in what is now the BC Premier League. If you look back, how important was that experience in preparing you for that next step?
I think it was probably the most important club I've been at in terms of my pathway to pro. Being at TSS, I was there for I think 3 seasons for 2023. I got on the team when I was 17, so I wasn't seeing much playing time, and I was playing with some high-level players that had former professional and Division One university experience. So I was just trying to learn as much as I can. And then in terms of development, I mean, each season I slowly played more and more. And then with the Canadian Championship, we played against Valor, played against Pacific, and then Valor again. So those experiences definitely kind of, when I played on the field against Valor, especially last year, it kind of showed me what the level's like and where I need to be. And then after the game, I had a pretty good season last year, so it just kind of gave me the good confidence. But yeah, League One has been very important in my career. I'd say the environment is the highest non-professional environment you can get around here, in my opinion. Training every day consistently, and then having a Canadian Championship berth as well is always a good thing, and games every week. So it's a very good level, and I don't think I'd be where I am today without them.
Yeah, and it's leads into the next question, which is we talk a lot about pathway. It's even in the name on this show. And you're someone who's lived it. So BC Premier League, University, now the CPL. Does it feel like to you that there are more opportunities for young Canadian players more than ever before?
I think so, for sure, especially with League One and even youth sports as well. I played in youth sports with University of Fraser Valley a couple of years ago as well. With getting drafted in the CPL, I think there is a really good pathway that's getting built here. I don't think it was such a good stepping stone before the CPL and youth sports to get to a professional environment here. But with the resources available today, I think it's much not easier, but it's more kind of laid out in a way for all the players. Especially with League One and Canadian Championship, I keep going back to that, but I think it's really, really important for just seeing the level and experiencing it, even if you're on the bench or on the pitch. It's a really good level. So I think the pathway developed today is definitely helping a lot of young players around here.
Now, earlier this year, you had the chance to face Nottingham Forest's U21 side at the Kamloops International Cup. Tell us about that experience, and also, how valuable was it to test yourself against that level of opposition?
That was a good experience. They were younger players, of course. I'm not sure. I think there's U21, right? So they were a bit younger than me, but their level was right up there. I was pretty surprised. It was a very good level, and it was a very good experience seeing the professionalism that they carry at such a young age. They were knocking it around. They were all amped up. The course determined doesn't really mean anything in terms for them, right? But it was just a good way to the minutes in for them, but they were knocking it around pretty good. That was a very good level, and that experience was good. It was a League One All-Star team, lots of good players. That was probably one of the best seasons in League One, I'd say, last year. And there was lots of good players on that team going up to Kamloops, playing against a professional academy. It was a pretty cool experience. I think if they keep something like that running within League One and All-Stars and getting some more professional academies down here, I think that's a good thing to keep going.
And finally, there's a lot of young players who actually watch this show. Obviously, we're engineering it that way too. Now, they're currently playing at PSLC clubs all over the country, and they're going to want to follow a similar path to you. Do you have any advice for those folks?
I would say something that helped me the most in my career, especially as a young player, is doing as much as you can on your own. I remember just before I got in TSS, every single day after school and after even training with my men's team I was in my yard kicking a ball against the wall every single day, just trying to get the most out of the time I can, right? I was just obsessed with it, and I was just like, let's just see where this can go, right? So I think doing as much as you can on your own is definitely something important. And then I would say for any young players who aren't in men's league yet, I would say try and get into a men's environment as quick as you can, because the physicality and pace difference for me personally was a huge stepping stone in my development. I went from BCPL from the last year, and as soon as our last year ended, I went straight to men's league with the team I was on Coastal, and it was a huge stepping stone for me. I think physically wise and mentally, it was a good way to get the intensity up. So I'd say those two things combined is a good way to start off your pathway.
And final question is all about you. Obviously, you have so much to look forward to, and we're excited to watch that blossom. But if you could look back and speak to the 16-year-old Kian, what would you tell him?
I would say enjoy it. I'd say enjoy it more than I was. I was kind of focused a little bit too much on getting to where I want to be as quick as I could. I was getting frustrated with not getting many minutes and not having good performances, but I would say enjoy as much as you can, because there's lots of pressure when it comes to higher levels and stuff like that. So I'd say just enjoy it as much as you can and don't take anything for granted.
Awesome, mate. Well, congratulations again on a fantastic start to your pro career. We're obviously wishing you the best from the pathway. We're going to be watching, and we'd love you to stay in touch, actually, and come back as your career progresses, because obviously these are the stories that are going to be so inspirational to people who want to follow that pathway too.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for having me on here. I hope I can come back sometime in the near future after a couple of good seasons, and we can have a recap on this. That'd be great.
Absolutely. The pleasure was all ours. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the roundtable. And we're going to go right across the country. There's been lots happening over the past few weeks, with both BC championships wrapped up and the OPL Cup just round the corner. Michael, I'm going to come to you first. Firstly, how are you doing, mate?
Very good. Very tired with all the World Cup stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. We're going to get into that too. But before we do, could you start by giving us a recap of the BC championships?
2 champions crowned in the men's division. It's back-to-back for Langley United. Incredible story for Langley. They've been in the league 2 years. They've won it both years. This is their 100th anniversary as Langley United Soccer Association. So it's very special times. Their women's team as well has done excellent. 5th last year, 3rd this year. And chatting to their head coach, the very heavily pregnant Chelsea Hannison, that was overdue for her last game this weekend by 2 days, but was still in the dugout coaching the team. So they've had a great season. On the women's side, it was a battle all season between the top 2. Altitude, the defending champions, Vancouver Rise Academy. And it was Vancouver Rise Academy that won their first BCPL title under their new name. They've won it before as Whitecaps Girls Elite, but they were a class act this year. Just lost 1 game the whole season, and there's so much young talent coming through. And the scary thing about the Rise Academy is a bulk of their team are just 16 and 17, so they're also going to be together next season and maybe the season after as well.
And which clubs or players really stood out apart from the champions? So obviously they made their impact and they've got the titles, but anything from anyone else that you think deserves a bit of a shout out?
Yeah, I think on the men's side, TSS, who are always strong, they pushed Langley all the way. It came down ultimately to the 2 meetings between these 2 teams. And if they'd gone a different way, we'd be talking about TSS being champions again. There was quite a big gulf in a few of the divisions between the teams at the top, the teams at the bottom. In terms of standout players, on the women's side, 2 really good talents to watch for. The Golden Boot winner, Brooklyn Bolt, 14 goals on the season from her 13 games played. She's going to the Wisconsin Badgers in NCAA, but not until 2027. She's 17 years old. She's a Canadian under-17 international. But I think the standout player for the Rise was Lacey Kindle. And long-time Canadian fans will know her dad, Steve Kindle, who played for the Whitecaps for many years, and her mum, Sarah Maglio, who played for the women's team. So football's very much in her genes. She's had call-ups to the NSL with the Rise first team and wants to turn pro. So she's got a good future. On the men's side, the Golden Boot winner was actually Vancouver Whitecaps Academy player Chris Album. 13 goals for him in 10 games. He's just graduated from university. And I've been badgering the Whitecaps to kind of see their interest in him. And they're not saying much. So I do wonder if he's maybe going to be moving on to Europe or something. But he was a standout player. But there was a lot of really good young academy players coming through at Langley, Nanaimo United. And the good thing, we talked about this the last time I was on, all these clubs in the BCPL have their academies, and you're seeing the true pathway now. There was so many 17, 18-year-olds that had come through from the youth teams playing in the BCPL. They're going off to college now, and there's a lot of exciting players to watch.
Amazing. Thank you for that insight and some really good names for people to make a note of and follow as they progress. Carlisle, we're going to switch up into Ontario and we're approaching the business end of the OPL Cup now. What would fans be watching out for the next couple of weeks over here?
Yeah, so a bit of just a technical note because we're recording this the day of the semifinals on the men's side. So, but the big story on really both sides of the men's and women's games here has been cup sets. You know, this is the beauty of knockout football in an FA Cup style tournament. The whole idea was to create an opportunity for every senior team in the system to have a shot at winning a trophy against every other team in the division. And right now we've got 3 out of the 4 semifinalists in the men's side are from OPL2. And they're going up against Woodbridge, the defending OPL1 champions. So there's certainly, I think, a favorite right now would be Woodbridge on paper. But right now you've got Masters FA against Waterloo United, OPL2 versus OPL2. And you've got Cambridge United coming off a win on the road against Vaughan Azzurri. So they've already slain one OPL1 giant to get to the semifinals. I think they will relish the opportunity to go up against Woodbridge Strikers tonight as an ambitious club that they are. In their goal to keep climbing the ranks here. So, an opportunity to watch some OPL2 sides. We're guaranteed at least one in the OPL Cup final at this point on the men's side. Then on the women's side, we do have an OPL2 team as well in the final there as well. Hamilton United coming off a cup set of their own against Vaughan Azzurri on the women's side. They're going to take on Guelph United there as well. So, really, I mean, we're recording this in the middle of the knockout stages of the World Cup, so we know how exciting knockout football can be. I'm sure all these the players that are going to be involved will have the same kind of energy after watching what has been a fantastic week of football at the highest level, and we get to see a little taste of it here at the OPL level.
Well, just going off the back of that, obviously the storylines everywhere, whether you go all the way to the World Cup, right down to what we're talking about. I even was speaking to one of my family friends, and there's a bunch of storylines even kicking off in their local kids leagues as well. So, Carlisle, I just want to stay with you and just pick your brains on, firstly, which club has impressed you the most this season? And also, is there a player or a team that's actually exceeded expectations as well? Someone that you didn't necessarily have your eye on, but now you do?
I think I can kind of answer both questions with one team each on the men's and women's side. On the men's side, I've been really impressed with Windsor City and what they've been doing in OPL2. They've been sort of a middle of the pack team for the last 2 years, and all of a sudden they have exploded this year. 9 wins, 1 loss in 14 league matches. And actually their only loss came to Cambridge United, another team with higher ambitions there as well. 6 of their wins have been by 3 or more goals. That is bananas in terms of their attacking prowess this season. They're led by Kieran O'Connor, who's got 10 league goals. Songmafalo Koulibaly has 9 league goals. He's listed as a defender, by the way. And he had a 4-goal performance against FC London at one point this season. Both of them also just thought I'd mention 4 yellows each, so they're not afraid to get mixed up in the nitty gritty of regular grind that is the OPL season. So on the men's side, Windsor City look like they're surely the favorites right now to be moving up to OPL1 next season. And then on the women's side, an OPL2 team from last year that earned promotion, Scrissapi, because I think the easy answer here on the women's side, you could go Simcoe County or NDC just because they're at the top of the table and have been dominant for sure. But they've been there before. They're 2 sides who have been at the top of the table for the last couple of years. But Scrissapi, their men's team has had a lot of recent success. The women's team is catching up quickly right now, it looks like. They're sitting 4th in OPL1 after earning promotion, as I mentioned. And actually, they played Simcoe County to a 2-1 loss at one point, and they beat NDC 2-0 already this year. So Scrissapi certainly a team on the rise on the women's side, catching up to their men's team.
Amazing. Some really good insight there again. And also one or 2 storylines that people should really jump on, because as the season starts to bubble now, and there's going to be so many more things happening there. Nelson, I'm going to shift to you for a minute. First things first, what are the 2 jerseys you've got up right behind you? We always see that you mix up your background.
I'm trying to keep it fresh every episode. We got the Thunderbait Chill and AS Blainville from LS Pro, really trying to show love to every single league across the third tier of Canadian footy. I've got a jersey from most leagues except for the Alberta Premier League. If any Alberta Premier League teams are watching this and want to see their jersey behind me, please feel free to send me a message on Twitter or X, and we'd love to have your badge flying behind me.
Amazing. Nice little plug there. And yeah, Nelson, similar question to you, which is there a player flying under the radar that people should know about that you've got your eye on?
I've been following all the major leagues within the Premier Soccer League system, and there's two players that are really sticking out to me. One from the Prairies and one from Ontario. Because starting with the Prairies, Ella Favit of the Thunderbait Chill has just absolutely taken everyone aback this season. She's clocked 10 goals over 8 games so far with the Chill. We knew that she was going to be a threat coming into this. I mean, she was a second team All-Star in the MAIA, which is D2 NCAA, while playing with the Emporia State Hornets. She even clocked 5 goals in back-to-back games against the Bonnie Battelle Flames, which is just mind-blowing. And to top it all off, she's only 19 years old. So if she keeps up these performances this season, as well as in following seasons, we know that that name's going to hold a lot of water after graduation if she's looking to go pro. The second name, Carlisle, I'm going to take the easy answer because every single time I was looking at her stats, Marlena Spagnolo, 6 clean sheets this season alone, 8 goals against in 13 games at large across the OP01 season. When she was playing with the Brock Badgers, she had 10 goals against and 107 saves in 14 games. She knows how to backstop a team. And this is on top of the fact that we saw a goalie goal last week. She netted a goal on her own in added time to win the match against, I believe it was Waterloo, from nearly the halfway line. Spagnolo is the real deal here. And although she does already have some professional experience with Malaga in the Spanish second division, she's in this transition period within her career that we could see her go and WSL, NSL, or even back to Europe, considering just how important of a role she's playing in SCR's campaign this season.
Amazing. So even more to add to people's lists, and yeah, let's see how that one plays out. Now, the World Cup is over. For Canada, what a glorious run it was. And obviously, we're all hoping it's something that's just the beginning for international football in this country. But Nelson, I'm going to stick with you and say, what impact do you think the World Cup will have on young Canadian soccer players, footballers, based on what we've just collectively experienced over the last couple of weeks?
I mean, I think we're seeing it throughout just watching this World Cup progress. I saw a post on social media a few days ago that compared kids' favorite players 10 years ago to now. If you ask a kid in kindergarten, in the early stages of elementary school, who their favorite player is, you're going to get your Neymars, your Messis, your Ronaldos. But now you're hearing a lot more Davies, David, Lorea. These are Canadian homegrown names that kids are now absolutely looking up to because they're seeing those numbers, those nameplates on the world stage, playing at BMO Field, Toronto Stadium, playing at BC Place, Vancouver Stadium. These little moments across the country is where we're going to see this impact. You're going to have kids in the backyards having reenactments of Davies' goal versus Panama. You're going to see kids asking for Canada soccer jerseys. Registration is going to go through the roof, and that's just going to domino through the ages, through the age groups. We already see Jesse Mars. We discussed this last time around. Jesse Mars is ingratiating himself with every single level of this national program. PSL, the U20 team, he's already building the U23 roster for the next Olympics, rather. So he sees how important this is. The players see how important this is. And parents, when they see how important this team is to their kids, they're going to put them in soccer. They're going to register them. They're going to buy them those jerseys. And that dream will just be ignited for a new generation.
Michael, we love having you on for the BC perspective. Do you expect to see more players, families, communities engaging with the game after what's just happened this summer, specifically out there in Vancouver?
I mean, I hope so. And we've got a high take-up rate here, soccer-wise anyway. it does feel the football kind of really captured the public's imagination. The viewing parties here at the official fan fest and also elsewhere as well were absolutely tremendous. And it's building on that now and how to build on it. And I think, like Nelson's right, kids are now seeing that they can be professional footballers in this country and they can watch these players and aspire to be those players. And it's something that's been missing for so long. And I think this has just captured everyone's imagination. The task now is, how do you transfer the passionate crowds into going out to watch the club soccer? MLS obviously gets big crowds. We need to get crowds in the CPL up. We need to get people looking across the PSL, across Canada, and realizing I don't like using hockey parlance when we're talking about soccer, mainly because I don't understand a lot of it. But I know, like, people look at development teams in hockey and they want to go out and support them. Like Vancouver Giants here, there's a big support. So we need to try and get the mindset now in this country that people will go and support these teams and then aspire to play in the developmental teams that are coming through and creating the next generation of Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Richie Larea, the likes of those.
Yeah, and Carlisle, if we just take that a bit further as well, we want to talk to you a bit about where the Premier Soccer Leagues of Canada fits into this legacy. We've talked about pathways, we call our show Pathway, and now we really get to see what the legacy of World Cup on these shores could actually look like. We've seen that now. Where does PSLC fit into the Canada's next 4-year cycle from your perspective?
For the next 4-year cycle, it's probably a bit too early to see an immediate impact in terms of, who's going to be on the roster, presumably while Canada are in the next World Cup. I think a reasonable expectation is that we should be qualifying for every World Cup going forward. So in the next 4-year cycle, I think it'd be a pretty big shock if there was someone currently in a Premier Soccer League system that ends up on the Canadian national team in that tournament. Part of that is a good problem to have, is because the squad is only going to improve from what we have here. It's still a young squad. The Canada roster that we're going to see in Spain, Morocco, and Portugal will be wiser, will be more experienced, and more battle tested, certainly from coming out of this cycle. Where PSL fits in, I think, is in the longer term, but will play a vital role. And I think there's another aspect of this where, we're talking about the pathway, the Canadian pipeline that is very much in-house. There is an international audience now that is watching Canadian soccer. Canada-Morocco was primetime European viewing, and we're in the knockout stage. You're the only show in town. People were watching when Canada were playing big matches. The reputation will only grow from here. And there's a recruitment aspect here as well that I think PSL teams will have to start to take into consideration. Jesse Marsh will be, part of his job now will be convincing players who maybe have dual nationalities. It's a lot easier to convince them to play for Canada now that we are a last 16 team at the World Cup. There will be a trickle-down effect for that. There are obviously rules in place for roster construction at this level, rightfully so, to emphasize Canadian participation and development. But there will be other eyes on Canada and watching how PSL develops to see as a pathway for their career development as well from outside Canada. Is there an opportunity to create, Canadian pipelines from outside this system? I think that's something that PSL teams should be starting to take a look at. Again, not necessarily in the short term. There's still a lot of development still to go from a infrastructure standpoint for the league itself. But there are going to be a lot more eyes on Canadian soccer outside Canada as well going forward. And I think that's an important aspect that everyone across the country should be aware of and should be looking at opportunities there to embrace it and infuse into what is already, I think, a solid groundwork that we've laid here.
Yeah. So, Michael, if we just extrapolate what Carlisle said, what does success look like for us then at this league by the time the next World Cup rolls around? And yeah, we're saying Canada will have qualified and we'll be now in our third tournament in a row. But where do you aspire that these leagues will be at that point?
Continued growth, really, but also moving players on into the pro game. I know here in BC, we've not seen as many players move into the CPL as maybe could have moved into the CPL. And one of the frustrating things for me is the two BC CPL teams look overseas and bring in players from elsewhere where there's been some really good local talent. And I think from the CPL perspective, they kind of need to get out the mindset that once a player is 21 or 23, they're too old and they can't go and play pro. There's some very good players that are 22, 23, older in the BCPL that deserve to chance. And players develop at different age levels as well. And I think success from a BCPL perspective would be moving more players into the pro game, men and women's side. The problem with the Rise here is they only want players that's come through the NSDC system. So you've maybe got good players that's been in the BCPL, but the Rise won't look at them. So that's when you need maybe a second team here that's not tied into what was the Whitecaps or Alberta teams to take it on. But I'd also like to see the league grow. I'd love to see a nationwide cup competition for the top teams in the PSL. And from speaking to a lot of the coaches here, they would like that as well. Here in BC, we're looking at the moment at trying to be year-round, which is obviously an advantage that we can have weather-wise here. So there is a dipping a toe in the water this fall with a standalone in the men's division under the Fraser Valley Soccer League umbrella, where all the teams are going to have teams in that with the ultimate goal that is going to be a year-long BCPL. How that works in conjunction with college is a whole other thing. But if we can make that work, I think success in 4 years' time is more teams in the BCPL and playing year-round and moving players into the pro game more than we have so far.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to wrap up with a quick fire looking ahead right back to where we are right now, which is early July in the leagues that we're all in. I'm going to ask you all for one storyline everyone should keep an eye on. I'll start with you, Nelson. What's the one storyline bubbling right now that you want to bring to our attention?
I think it's really going to be the development and the expansion of LS Pro in Quebec. We see how they've changed their pyramid structure to really incorporate regional leagues. And I mean, Michael, you were touching it on right there with in BC with the Fraser Valley Soccer League. That sort of expansion, that inclusion of more amateur sides, the men's sides, to then develop that pyramid and really create that top to bottom growth, I think could be a framework for future development. We don't want to compromise professionalism, but the more teams, the more players you can get participating in the PSL structure and going towards those goals, I think it's all the better.
Carlisle, same question for you.
I'll go with just a title chase right now. OPL 1's men's side is a 3-horse race. Woodbridge taking on Oakville this weekend. Oakville looking to be a bit of a, I would say even a gate crasher at the top of the table right now. Over with Scrisopi in the mix as well. So just having an exciting title race. What's not to love about that? In your standard league campaign, it looks like it could come down to the wire, and Oakville looking to make some noise and knock off the defending champs.
Perfect. And last but never least, Michael, one from you too, please.
Well, obviously the season's wrapped up here, so it's now turning the attention as to what's next. And in the women's division, that's the main storylines. Vancouver Rise NSL have been calling up quite a few of the academy players, so it's to keep an eye on what players are going to get time there. They just called up the Rise Academy captain, Mila Iwazik, who made her NSL debut in their last game. And the team is struggling, so they do need some fresh faces in there. But also keep an eye on the players that were playing for Altitude Women. The bulk of them are UBC Thunderbirds players. They are back in U Sports action at the end of August. They're hosting nationals this year as well, and the hunger is very much there to win a home nationals.
Thank you to you as well. So, folks, that's it for this week's roundtable. It really feels like Canadian football has reached an important step, and the World Cup might be over for us, but the work in developing the next generation is just getting started. And that's why competitions like ours for clubs across the Premier Soccer Leagues Canada play such an important role. Gentlemen, thanks as always. I'm looking forward to speaking to you, well, some of you next week. And for the listeners as well, thanks for joining us. Remember, like and subscribe and share this with friends who are interested in grassroots soccer here in Canada. And there you have it. Episode 4 is in the books. I do want everyone to pay particular attention to Kian, because we really think that this is a name that's going to be synonymous with the pro leagues here in Canada and someone who's going to become a friend to the show. Other than that, we're excited to bring you this show and look forward to reconnecting in a couple of weeks. Before that, you know what to do. Smash all the buttons. We can't do this without people talking about what this show is. Bye for now.